Hello, hello. Today we are talking about variables in experiments. How can we make experiments fair and true? What factors contribute to a valid and successful science experiment? We are trying to discover if airplanes made out of cardstock, copy paper, or newspaper will fly the farthest. Before we begin, we need to make sure everything is collected in order to start our trials. We will need one piece of copy paper, one piece of cardstock, one piece of newspaper, a measuring tape, and a large open space for flying the planes. When conducting an experiment like this, there are a few things that we need to understand to make sure that the experiment we are conducting isn't flawed. In order for an experiment to be fair, you can only change one thing at a time when everything else stays the same. What if we were to make the 3 airplanes out of different materials and have a different design? Do you think that this experiment would be accurate if I'm testing which one will go the farthest? I wouldn't be able to identify the factor that is making one plane successful while the others fail. The one thing that you change in an experiment is called the independent variable. The independent variable is the thing that is being tested. In our experiment today, we are trying to figure out which material will make an airplane fly the farthest. Therefore, our independent variable would be the copy paper, newspaper, and the cardstock. The material is the thing that we are consciously changing and testing. All of the other things that we could have changed but didn't are called constant or controlled variables because they stay the same. They help keep the experiment fair because we know that our one independent variable was the only thing to affect the results of our experiment. In this case, our controlled variables, the things that we did not change, were the design of the airplanes, the location of the trials, the force of the throw, the size of the paper, and the conditions of the area. Let's look at how our 3 airplanes did. The independent variable, the one thing that we did change, which was the material, affected how far they flew. We know that nothing else could have affected their travel because it was the only thing we changed. Our constant variables allowed us to isolate the factor we are trying to measure. The last type of variable, the dependent variable, is what we are trying to measure. In this case, how far our airplanes flew. It helps me to remember that the dependent variable is ultimately our data. This variable is dependent on our independent variable. How far the airplanes flew were dependent on the material that they were made of. When we double check that our experiment has only one independent variable, the thing that you change, which was the material of our airplanes, one dependent variable, the thing that we measure, which was the distance the airplanes traveled, and our constant or controlled variables, which stay the same in every trial, we know that our experiment will be accurate and repeatable. Now let's go see if we can find these different types of variables in other experiments.